Hello, my friends. It's Carpo here. Now, I was sitting down to do a podcast, and I thought that I would make a video first. The little introductory song that you just heard was a song my brother wrote that we played together in a band several years back. And honestly, we played in a band for a few years, recorded 2 albums, and I still can't give you the names of half the songs that we played. But that line, "The Devil with Blue Eyes," every time I hear that, I think that's coming from the mouth of my own brother. My blood brother, somebody I grew up with. And I was thinking earlier, actually, I was researching podcasting as far as adding music, and I was watching this little video for Spotify, and they were showing how you can add clips, and I commented that I'm fortunate that I have music that my brother wrote. I'm going to say he wrote the songs, and I played bass, and we had a drummer. Being able to add your own music, it's so much more than just the copyright issues. It's being able to express yourself through something you've created or been part of. It's almost an added bonus to being able to play the kind of music you like and listen to the kind of music you like. And speaking of that, I originally sat down to make a podcast, and I thought I would make a video first so I could just kind of loosen up a little bit and before I go on a long tangent about these subjects. But mostly it's going to deal with the phases of our lives, dealing with now versus the later, how much to plan for life, like what is wisdom, how to use time wisely, all of these things which are just pretentious and arrogant for any individual to try to teach other people. Which is all the more reason why I talk about it, because I feel like there are plenty of, self-help gurus out there who will tell you all you got to do is just work harder, or, hustle, 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 hustle. And the reality is that doesn't bring us much satisfaction at all. Before I go too far off topic, because I wanted to talk about several different things, last night was Halloween. It was an interesting night. It was a full moon, the hunter's moon, the blue moon. It's actually, I think, the first blue moon in over 70 years on Halloween. And I thought it would be a good night to take some MDMA. So I did. And often when I take psychedelics or MDMA or anything that's going to leave a lasting impression, I like to take something away from the experience. I don't like to just go out dancing and just not think about anything. It's a process. And last night, my wife put on a song, and it was "I Love You" by Billie Eilish. I think it's Eilish or Eilish. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it yet. I've heard about her. I was not familiar with her music, and I'm not very caught up on popular songs. That song took me to a place that I was able to really, it gave me a completely different understanding on music. Now, I'm a musician, by the way, obviously, playing with the band, but I play bass, I play guitar, I sing, I play drums. I am fascinated with all different types of music, and I want to understand and use all instruments. I'm teaching myself keyboard right now, learning how to play the pipe organ, at least the settings, because I'd love to be able to just sit there on an organ and just rip on it. But the point here is that I understand music and musical construct. And what I've learned after playing music for 30 years, I don't know a damn thing about it. I am such a rookie, and we all are. It's the thing. Take Phish, for example, as a band. A lot of people think, oh, they're just a hippie band. If you ever go to a Phish concert live and you don't think it's one of the craziest things you've seen, I guess maybe that's just your opinion, but it's the musical talent those guys put forth is so elaborate and complex and so beautiful that it's somewhat like the Grateful Dead jams, right? Where they would just jam for 20 minutes, except for when Phish does it, they plan every note, right? And I'm mentioning that as a way to say that I understand music, and the way that Billie Eilish song was constructed, where it builds up to a crescendo, that's just part of it. It's I cannot explain because I don't understand. I don't have the right terminology for it. But let's just say this: it means more than just a beautiful song. As I've mentioned, and I don't really want to bring this up, every time, but our, niece, my wife's niece, died last year on October 27th. It's been a year now, so we were just kind of celebrating her life over the last week, and that song became part of it. Now, I bring that up because I got up this morning, that song was stuck in my head, and I had to hear it. When music can bring you to tears, a song you've never even heard, it's something amazing. And I just like to say that I never take that for granted. Emotions are so important. Being able to express yourself when you feel sad, or you feel angry, or you're upset, or you feel slighted, any of your different emotional states have to be able to be expressed. And maybe that's why psychedelics become such a tool, because it allows people to open up. Some people are very closed off to their feelings. And that's one of the main components of the podcast I'm going to do. And I figure Sunday's the best day for me to do podcasts, because it's when I've always set Sunday as kind of my day of thoughts. And since I've never really had a solid schedule, I just try to set that day aside as like it's my one stability, my one island of stability in crazy, chaotic life, and every week just flies by. It's a roller coaster, and it doesn't stop until the end. We're going to have ups and downs in life. We're going to have people who we lose, people who we gain. There's no way to plan for it. There's no way to prepare for it. Life is what it is, and shit happens the way it happens. And acceptance is really the key. And when I say acceptance, I mean we have to just accept things for the way they are. But it's a very fine line between accepting things and tolerating bullshit. If you can affect something in your life that's causing you harm, if you can take initiative and challenge a project, get something done, or eliminate somebody from your life who is causing you grief. I mean, everybody knows people in their lives who you just don't get along with very well anymore. You don't hate the person. You don't think they're a bad person. Just say this person's mind is going to a different place than mine, and when I'm around this person, or when I talk with this person, it makes me feel butterflies in my stomach, and I feel angry or frustrated or hostile or whatever you might feel. Disconnecting from those kind of people can be the healthiest decision we can make, but often that's not possible if they're your immediate family, say your wife, your husband, your kids, or your parents. That's a little trickier, because in that case, that's when we have to learn to work together. It's the beauty of playing in a band, and why I used that at the beginning. When you play in a band, there's usually a leader or a songwriter, but they don't have the final say in everything. There's a certain amount of leeway for the rest of the band members, but in order to cooperate, you have to think on a similar level. You can't have one guy that's drunk every single day and everybody else is sober. You can't have the guy who's constantly smoking DMT in the band room during practice, or the guy who's, going out and partying all night and not be able to show up on time. The idea is to find people who are as close as possible to your values and then play music with these people. They can be completely different types of people, but the music is what connects them. And that is the metaphor for life. We find people who can relate with us on certain levels, and we make friends. And the thing is, the more we distance ourselves from others, the more we build resentment or hostility, or point the finger, or blame everybody else for our problems, the more we're just going to feel alone and isolated. And that's never more apparent than today. I posted in my community section earlier, I said, it's sad that our representatives, our politicians are, make such horrible decisions and act like complete jerks. But it's a reflection of the people who voted. It's the people who are embarrassing, the people who don't know any better. And that's not about just this election. Believe me, it's 2 days from the election here. So that's not what I'm really talking about. I'm just saying in general, we've always been misrepresented by those who have more power over us, whether it's our states, senators, or our, federal government, or our parents, or our teachers. When I hear stories about kids who are beaten or abused or harassed by their teachers, It's one of the most infuriating things that I can imagine. A teacher is somebody who's put in charge. You expect them to teach your children. And there are some parents out there who support capital punishment. They say, hey, you can spank my kid all you want. To me, that's taking the parenting away from the parent and putting it in the state's hands. And that's pretty sad for a parent to allow somebody else to spank their child. But most people don't tolerate that kind of crap. Or even verbal abuse, which... don't want to get off topic, but it reminded me of a story. I watched a documentary the other day. It was about both of the presidential candidates running right now. And Joe Biden stutters. He's always been a stutterer. He has an issue with speaking, but he fought through it. And it's one of the coolest things. I'm not a Biden fan, and this isn't political. Just think of him as a human being for the sake of this discussion. When he was in school, his parents sent him to a Catholic school. In that school, one of the nuns, it was his turn to speak in front of the class, and he was supposed to read a sentence, and he couldn't do it, and he stuttered. Apparently the nun came up and said, and kind of mocked him and made fun of him. So Biden got up, and he stormed out, and he went home. Well, his mom marched back there with him, and basically told the nun, if you ever make fun of my kid again, I'm going to knock you on your ass. I thought that was the greatest story. It's the same thing that happened to me almost in high school when I got busted with a bong and they said they were going to expel me and they were putting out all these threats. My mom showed up and just reamed the fucking principal, even though I was probably in the wrong for carrying a bong to school. That's not the point, right? The point is that your parents will defend you. They will protect you because that's what parents do. And that's a very unique relationship. What about protecting each other? If you have a friend that's being wronged, of course you'll defend your friend. What if you're walking down the street and you see a stranger being harassed? And this is where we start to kind of get a muddy area of like, well, is it my responsibility to speak up when I see a man slapping a 4-year-old across the face or verbally abusing him? I guess that would be the ultimate example of this question. Is it my place to tell somebody how to parent? No. But when I look around at the world and you see how children who are brought up with abuse act, you realize that there's a bigger picture going on there. It's not about putting the parent in their place. It's about how do we all work together and treat each other with mutual respect. You know, kids who are treated horribly as kids turn into monsters. And that's one of the main points I wanted to make when I do my podcast is I'm going to point this out, and I hope I don't forget, but, you know, a lot of parents want to give their kids everything they can. They figure if I just buy them everything they want, and, you know, then they'll be happy. And, of course, we know that's not true. But when you look at some of the poorest children in the world and how kids who grow up with almost nothing can grow up to be some of the most motivated, inspirational, intelligent people because they educate themselves. They know nobody else is going to do it for them. They take initiative early. And not always, but a lot of people do. Whereas a person who is born with a silver spoon in their mouth tends to just hope mommy and daddy are just going to give them everything. And even if they take a little bit of money from their mom and dad and start their own business, I've never respected the people who are already billionaires or millionaires and then they start this little side business where they can just buy out somebody else's creation or invention and say, oh, look, I own a shoe company now. Or, you know, it's not to poke at anyone else. To me, that wouldn't be satisfying. I want to build something from the ground up. And to bring the point back of parenting, that's, I guess, the perfect example of building something from the ground up. Having kids and having to deal with their bullshit. So cheers to all of you who are parents with my new Jägermeister cold cup that I got for free with the 5th. I'm a big fan of music, and the reason I mentioned Billie earlier was because she hits a chord in my heart. And she's only 17 or 18. She's like a pop star, but not a pop star. She has feelings. She has apparently depression and issues in her life which allow her to write like this. And that was why I brought it up. And it's directly compared to those kids who, say, grow up being terrorized in their own homes or their own cities they grow up to be some of the most well-spoken and outspoken people against that tyranny they faced. Because the more adversity you face in your life, the more likely you are to have something to stand up against. Like if you're born with the silver spoon, like I said, and you've never had any real problems, your problems are going to become, oh no, I didn't have my food delivered quick enough, or, I don't have enough gold bars, for an extreme example. People are never satisfied because we're always yearning for more. We're always trying to find our true self. And we think that self comes with having more, that comes with being successful, or being famous, or being respected. I would say being respected is definitely up there on the top. I mean, not by everyone. You'll never be respected by everyone. But if you have a few people who respect you, at least you can know that you're on some sort of a right track. And I know a person may disagree with that and say, no, as an individual, all that matters is whether you think you're doing the right thing, and I call bullshit on that. As a society, it's like saying one ant can just go be a soldier by himself. It doesn't work. He has no purpose, he has no group, he has no food, no home. You need to work within the confines of the society that you inhabit, and that's what we're doing. We're trying. Like, a lot of people are angry out there right now, okay? I mean, the things that are happening are just absurd. There's groups of people attacking each other in the streets, even people trying to drive folks off the road because they vote for a different candidate. I mean, there's some weird stuff going on, but that's not really much different than anywhere else in the world where there's constant strife and chaos, or where the cartels run the government in Mexico, right? But when we start to see that unchecked anger, it starts to make people worried. And the thing about unchecked anger is it becomes hate. So we have to address anger before it becomes hate. As a question that I heard posed, and I thought it was really, more or less the question was, is the hunter, and this is an old philosophical thought, but is the hunter angry at his prey? Is the hunter angry at the deer that he's killing? No. You could call it violence or murder or hostility to attack an animal, but if it's for food, that's a different story. I mean, even if it's for sport, which I totally abhor sport hunting, but not adore, I abhor. It's aberrant. I hate it, especially trophy hunting. I think it's absolutely disgusting. But the hunter's not angry with the deer. Trophy hunters are just trying to. It's about image. But hunting in general is about the sport, but about the food too, about that connection with nature, which a lot of people completely, we've become so separated from our food, people just hate hunters. A lot of people are like, oh, you shouldn't hunt deer. It's like, there's plenty of deer. You shouldn't eat cow. Don't want to get into that, but the unchecked anger, frustration, becomes hate. And the way to avoid getting into a situation where we hate, and why it matters, is because being hateful is pointless. It doesn't help you in life. You're not protected, you're not feeling better, it's just causing you cortisol and stress in your bloodstream. And it's important to listen to our elders, as well as those around us who have experienced things we haven't yet, or, I hate to say it, but listening to the youth. That's something that I told myself when I was younger. I said, when I get older and more stubborn in my ways, I'm not going to be one of those guys that says, oh, kids these days, everything sucks, their music sucks, their attitudes suck. And I stand by that. To this day, I try to say, okay, we've got Gen Y, Gen Z, whatever you want to call them, kids that are growing up today that really have just been born into this technological marvel of having smartphones glued to their damn faces all day. And all the adults are like, oh man, back when I was a kid. But the parents, the adults have the same phone in their faces. It's the same technology. It doesn't matter what age you are. We're all sucked into distractions. And so a major component of what I really wanted to cover, especially in the podcast, is when people talk about the now. I always think of Eckhart Tolle, or Tolle, however you pronounce it. And he's always so dry and boring. And a lot of people love the guy. But to me, I say, would I hang out with this guy at a party? No, I'd love to talk to him for a while, but I like people with personality, right? And just, this is my own opinion, but some people are so focused on the living in the now that they forget that it's about planning for later. You can't just live in the moment all the time. So what is wisdom? It's living, but it's living for the moment. It's not how much stuff you know. Regret or feeling guilty is how we learn, right? If we make a mistake, damn it, beat ourselves up over it for a minute, but then we get back on the saddle. And we have to use our time wisely. And as I've heard people say this plenty of times, time is the only true commodity that we really have. It's the only thing that we have. That's it. Money is pointless. Wealth, riches, fame, all of this is fleeting. Because time is what determines how long we hold on to these things, right? The point I want to make on that is that a lot of us beat ourselves up because we feel like we've wasted time. A good example would be making a whole bunch of YouTube videos that I don't upload, like I have over the years. I've got dozens of them that I just never uploaded because I just didn't think they were worthy. Probably hundreds. Just videos in general, even the ones I have uploaded. What's the point? Why? It's a waste. Is it a waste of time? What about some of the carpentry projects I've made? I made a whole bunch of meditation benches to sell, and then they just sit on the shelf now for, they were carved 2014. I mean, they've been there for 6 years. I'm like, am I going to actually, do the things I say, or am I wasting time? And then I think, just researching is wasting time. Holy shit, I woke up in the morning, I had a cup of coffee, and I looked at the news. That was a waste of time. The point is, you come to the conclusion eventually that time is what it is. It's going to pass whether you want it to or not. You can try to slow it down by having different, insights into things, and it really is relative. In fact, just yesterday I was marveling at the fly. And some people have posed that the fly, their mind works faster than humans, right? I mean, of course it does. You think you got that fly, but he's flying off somewhere. Before you even whip that towel, he's already gone, right? Because they're able to work their minds in a slower relation to time. And I'm pretty much convinced this is, of course, true. It's impossible to prove, of course, but the way their synapses connect, their brains are much smaller. They can move quicker, right? Well, this is very apparent in humans. If you take certain drugs, you can slow time down to a damn near standstill. I mean, I don't know how many people I've talked to who have said, yeah, I smoked DMT and it seemed like I was there for a lifetime. I don't want to kind of cater to the people who say, oh yeah, I took some acid or I smoked some DMT and I was gone and I lived a whole lifetime and I was born and I went through this whole life and it was like living a full life, and then when I came back I was here back in this reality. I'm like, no, come on. Let's be realistic. You're not really living that lifetime. It's a mental construct, just like time is. It's all a mental construct. Time is a way to gauge the passing of events. That's the only definition I can come up with. It's a way to gauge the passing of events and put them on a grid so we can understand them. But time, like mathematics, it's just something humans used, to measure. And so, being humans, we can justify any action we want if we can just come up with the right excuses for what we've done. We can waste our lives away and say that it was the best thing ever. It's very subjective. If a person wants to be wealthy and that's their only goal, and they will step on any toes to get it, and they just don't care, and they just tease people, make fun of people, and it's all about that business aspect, or, I started this company, or I did this, and look how great I am, look at all the billions I have, it's what leads to 3 people in the United States right now. 3 billionaires. And you know who they are. 3 billionaires own more wealth than the bottom 90% of Americans. 3. Or was it 50%? Does it even matter? I think what it was is that, yes, it's 0.1% of people in this country own 90% of the wealth. That's 0.01. 0.1%, 1/1000th of the country's people. 1/1000th own 90% of the wealth. But 3 of those people own 50% of the wealth. And of course, that's pretty obvious when you talk about Amazon, Jeff Bezos. Then you've got Berkshire Hathaway, which is owned by Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not here to talk about billionaires. The point is that something's wrong out there when that person owns that much money, or you're basically a manager of wealth. You're not an owner of wealth. None of us are owners. And I don't know. I'm just going to leave it there. This ended up being supposed to be like a 5 to 10 minute video, just kind of a synopsis of what the podcast will be, but also for a way to me to kind of warm up and open up my heart and kind of express how I was feeling, especially after that journey last night and the whole Billie Eilish thing. And like, when you hear a song, particular song, when you're in that state of mind where it's serotonin related, okay? It's not drugs, because MDMA, or, where LSD can simulate serotonin and MDMA can, produce more serotonin. Serotonin is what makes us feel good, the reality chemical, if you will. Too much serotonin, we're totally chill, we don't do shit. Too much dopamine, we're overly motivated, but we don't feel good. That's a very vague way of putting it. It's much more complicated than that. But the idea is that if your serotonin is properly flowing, you feel pretty damn good. You feel very empathetic towards others, connected to other people. And so it's easy to bond with music, with individuals, with groups. Maybe that's the problem. In America, we are dopamine pushed. Work harder, gig economy, get out there, do it, hustle, make your money, do your thing. Work 50 hours a fucking week. We brag about working 70 hours a week. I mean, it's not because they like it, it's because we think, well, I'm working as hard as I can. It's a way of showing, look, I work really hard and I still don't have a damn thing. Becoming okay with that is the first step. Then it comes to the question of, how much do we take action and how much do we ignore things? That's a big question. Like, how much do we put effort in and even give a shit about the problems? And that's subjective. The final note I'd like to leave you guys with is this. I thought about this. I've had some weird dreams last 6-8 months. Really weird and very vivid. Usually it involves my school bus in some weird place. I've dreamed about apocalypses, fires, the sun going out, tidal waves, all this before COVID really became an issue. So it was almost like subconscious. I mean, I was aware of what was coming, right? Because I'd been reading about it. And I don't know how much that had a role in it, but when I thought about dreams, I had a dream about a pangolin the other night. We were standing by the lake, and I saw this pangolin like coming out of the water. I've never thought about pangolins, and it's not about the virus. I've researched and watched videos about them and stuff, but it's been months and months since I've seen anything about a pangolin. And all of a sudden I'm dreaming about my family standing at a fence seeing this pangolin come out, and I identified it in the video, or in the dream, and I've woke up in dreams and thought I was awake and had that double dream where you wake up in a dream, in a dream, in a dream. I learned how to lucid dream years ago. It was a practice that took me about a year to really master, where I could fly and do things. Dreaming is a trip, okay? It's your brain's subconscious, but there's more to it. So when people say they don't remember their dreams, usually it just means that they don't try to remember their dreams. So the comparison I wanted to make was, it's really strange, and this is something I know that everybody can understand, and the best way I can explain what being woke really should be. The term's stupid. When you go to sleep and you start dreaming at night, you might have the craziest dream, and in that dream, if you're not aware you're dreaming, which most of the time we're not, it will feel normal. In other words, you can see a bunch of crazy shapes floating, weird vehicles, things you've never seen in your waking life in reality. And yet, in that dream, they're accepted and normal. It's as if, oh, this is just how things are. The minute you wake up, you forget that dream. But if you do remember it, you think, how absurd was it that I didn't react differently in that dream? I see this as exactly what happens in real life. In other words, so many people are walking along as zombies, just woke up to the things they need to be awoken to. thinking that being woke means, oh, I understand racial bias, or I know that the drug war is a bad thing, or I can see that the Illuminati controls everything. None of that shit is important as you, your internal mind, the way that you process things. Being woke is waking up to the bullshit. It's that point where somebody calls you a total douchebag shit, insults you beyond anything you could imagine, and you just go, wow, you got problems. That's kind of the waking moment. Or when you start beating yourself up, but you're able to analyze it and say, whoa, you're thinking too deep about this. It's not a big deal. There are so many aspects about waking up. It's emotional intelligence and maturity. Growing up is more than getting older. And that's obvious. My son, my oldest son, he's 25. He's almost 26. And we were just talking about this yesterday. I said, dude, you're more emotionally mature than a lot of adults I know that are twice your age. And I said, I'm not to toot my own horn here. I said, because it's not just parenting. It's luck of the draw, the individual, the things they've been through in their own life. But it's not just the long conversations we've had as families, or the fact that we talk about our emotions. If we have a problem in our family, we discuss it. We sit down and talk about it. We don't call each other names or ground the kids or cause problems. I never grounded my son in the whole time he was growing up, And he's become a very respectful, conscientious adult. And when we were talking about other people, and he's like, they just can't control themselves. They go off the handle and they scream at one another, and sometimes emotionals just take charge of a person's, reality, and that's why emotional intelligence is so important. To recognize when you're angry and walk away. To recognize when you're sad and be careful what you say. To recognize when you're, anxious and work through it and laugh at yourself and realize the only real fear in life, the only thing that should ever make you anxious is the fact that you're going to die. And that's only if you're about to die, right? That's a way of protecting yourself. Anxiety helps us motivate, but if you are constantly worried about death, you're not gonna win. You just won't win that one. So conquering our fear of mortality is probably the first and most important step towards becoming confident, comfortable, and able to function in your life. These lessons I just give from my heart. These are the things that I feel have worked for me. And I'm not trying to tell you that this will work for you. It's very walking a fine line when I talk about any type of self-help or anything like that. There's a lot of fear out there. There's a lot of anger and hostility. It's easy to withdraw and just ignore all the bullshit, but I refuse to do so. I want to know as much as I can. I want to understand as much about myself as I can, knowing that nature is temporal, life is temporal. There's a lot of partial truths out there and things we don't know. So I'm going to leave it there. It's already as long as my podcast would be. So I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening, and thanks to my peeps.